Hello, everyone. I'm Joel Stoehr. I'm the director of the BFA Product Design program at Parsons School of Design. And I'm going to talk to you about a project that Sarah Ball brought to Parsons back in 2015. And it was a collaboration between the New York Public Library's Correctional Services Program and Parsons School of Design. And it was looking at sort of reinvestigating the library service, specifically the book carts that the librarians were using within correctional facilities, and offering the opportunity for students to research these, to redesign them, and to actually fabricate them and provide them back to the New York Public Library to use at facilities across New York City. I want to recognize all the students that were involved in this class. This was an elective class, and students came from a variety of majors. And there were students that were undergrad and graduate students in the class. So this is a couple photographs here of the carts that Sarah and her team were using at facilities on Rikers Island. I think both of these are from Rikers Island. And you can see here, just the volume, the sheer volume of books that they were moving around the facilities. And this is into and out of elevators, through a lot of passageways and doorways, and just the weight of pushing this around and trying to bring this to their patients multiple times a week. And so they were looking for a better way to do this. And this is what we brought to the students. In this photo, you can see a photo of Sarah with these multiple boxes stacked on top of this cart. That's a lot of weight to push around for a day. So how do you start this kind of project with a group of 13 students? 13 students that have they're from different majors, as I mentioned. They have varying skill sets, but we had this goal in mind of trying to move from individual schemes to one scheme that the team designs and fabricates together. But that first step really is for the students to start ideation, to start drawing two-dimensionally, and then beginning to work in small models three-dimensionally. I mean, the librarian team visited with the class at the start of the semester multiple times. And they were able to communicate and work with the students to talk about the needs that they had to deliver library service. It was not possible for the entire class to take part in library service. I was able to participate a few times with Sarah and her team. And I recall that we had at least one, if not two students from the student team that were able to go and partake in library service as well. But with these types of design build projects, that we do quite a bit at Parsons, you sort of have to encourage the out of the box thinking at the very beginning. So these sort of crazy schemes of rotating book carts and things is kind of where students start. And then they move through these sketches and continue to develop them for the semester. They're working as individuals, and then after a couple of weeks, they start to form small teams of 3 to 4 students, and they do that around shared interest or affinities within their design proposals. You can see in this image, it sort of relates to that previous sketch. This was an early mock-up that a team of about 2 to 3 students made, maybe about 3 students made, looking at how to deliver that volume of books. This was an interesting concept, maybe a little bit hard to move around a facility, but this is an early stage in their process where they're thinking and they're making it full scale, but a lot will change. You'll see here as well. So here's some additional concepts in these sketches, and you can see how students are beginning to move back and forth between sketching and then thinking about ways to exhibit the books from library service, and then to go ahead and make scaled models right here. So there's this sort of tray system for showing the library patrons what is available. And another view of that right here. But the group did kind of have a breakthrough when they realized that they would probably have to compromise the amount of books that they could actually load onto the cart, with considering how usable it was for the librarians to actually move it around the facility. And so they took a step back and realized that it was they had to make compromises really to make it usable for the library patrons and the librarians as well. And this was sort of a breakthrough moment and a turning point for the class, where they realized that it was as much about displaying what was on the book cart as it was in delivering a certain amount of books. And they were going to do this. The goal for this elective was for the students to actually produce 4 book carts that would be used at different correctional facilities across New York City. Here's some more views of sketches and views of this sort of breakthrough model, and investigating different ways that they could organize the books on. You can see sort of that bin or tray that the books go in was continued here. Another view, the side view, and a view of displaying books on the front of the cart. And in this sketch, you can kind of see how the team moved from the concept of storing books in bins to using shelving on the book cart, and considering that shelving is both storage and display of the books. So at this point in the semester, roughly, the students are coming together. They've translated from their teams of 3 to 4 into a team of 13 at this point, and they're looking at how to go ahead and take sort of agreed upon design idea, mock it up at full scale, and then fabricate it and deliver it. And this is that sort of midterm point of the semester where they've produced a full-scale mock-up. You can see one of the students in the class here for scale, and really thinking about how they're going to go ahead and make this. And this is actually quite similar to where the students ended. And the design didn't change radically. There were modifications made after this point, but then it was time for them to actually begin the fabrication process. And this involved sourcing the material, ordering the material, moving it into our build portions, and then actually in the metal shop, cutting the parts, welding the parts together, grinding the steel. And then after that, there'll be more steps that you see. So all 13 students in the class sort of took the initiative to equally spend time in there. They had plans which they had drawn together, follow those plans, cut out all the parts, weld the parts, assemble the parts. We were very lucky that one of the students in the class was actually a certified welder, but students from across the class also contributed to welding the parts together, moving them around the metal shop. Here's an image right here of a mostly assembled cart. There's a few more parts here. Another image right here of the cart partway through assembly. But with this image, what I want to think about here is that in these types of projects, the students are deeply involved with every step of fabrication, and doing that, they gain an insight into the decisions that they make when they're designing. So they have to go through all those steps, and it allows them to reflect on those decisions. So ultimately our goal in a design build project like this is to inspire that insight and that reflection on the part of the students, get them to consider, how they're making their design, what they're making their design out of, who's going to use it, how it's used, but ultimately also to consider the types of materials they choose to make things with, and consider circularity in that too, and what's going to happen to these book carts when they're no longer needed. These projects take time. There's a lot of steps, and the students become familiar with all those steps, and it requires a team effort. Students are often learning from each other in this portion of a project as much as they're learning from a technician in the shop or myself as a faculty member. There's a sense of accomplishment when they work as a team, and a lot of them get to use tools or engage in processes that they've never done before. So this is a new experience for them, but it really does impact their choices that they'll make as a designer once they graduate and move into a career. It was wonderful to have a team that all equally contributed to the fabrication of these carts. This was just an elective class. This was 3 credits, but the students devoted a lot of time to it, and that contributed primarily to the success, was their dedication to the project. So every student here contributed, and you can see the carts are starting to come together in this slide. There will be 4 of them. There's the team. There was a lot of grinding involved on all the welds, because there were a lot of welds in this particular design. More grinding right here, but eventually, once the carts were assembled, we were able to put the casters on and test them and see what the weight was going to be like. And here's one in our classroom space, and this is right before it goes to the painter to be powder coated. This is when they were returned from the powder coater. We've got 2 out of 4 carts, both of these being gray. These are on the sidewalk in New York City. I think we're moving these into one of the buildings at Parsons. And the team did decide to color one of the carts hot pink. I think that's a reference to the location where this cart was going to be used at the Rose M. Singer Center on Rikers Island, which is also known otherwise as Rosie's. Here's the student team. So after bringing these back from the powder coater, then they had to go through the process of all the mill work, cutting and assembling all the wooden shelves that were going to be installed on these carts. Here's an image of the team again in the wood shop. And they divided all the tasks up again to cut all the parts. I mean, every book cart here has about 9 different compartments or shelves on it. So there's a lot of wooden parts, all had to be cut out, assembled, and then attached to the book cart itself. And then after that happened, then it was time to document the project too. And so special thanks to a photographer, Martin Steck, for volunteering his time to document this with myself and one of the students. So you can see the different views of the cart here, some changes that were made in the handle, the way the cart sort of wider at the base than it is at the top to help with balance. The designs the students made to how to organize material on the cart. This is Jasmine, a student from the class that helped out with the photo shoot. And then thinking about how a user would push the cart around a facility, where the cart turns from. I mean, the pivots, very much like a shopping cart in a supermarket. The cart pivots at the rear where the weight is centered over it, so it's easier to negotiate and move in and out of tight spaces. Here's an image there, sort of a final image of the hot pink cart. And at the end of the semester too, though, the librarian team was from the New York Public Library was also there to join the students and talk about the project and reflect on it. We were joined by faculty from across Parsons, outside critics and guests that came to visit and talk about the project. And here's an image of the student team. This is a few members of the student team. And here's the entire class of students and myself after the project. And so that, in summary, is just a little glimpse into a design build class that partnered with the Correctional Services program from the New York Public Library. And thank you. That's my presentation. I'll turn it back to Sue.